Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for yet another What We Really Learned from the Past Chelsea game. This time, Tottenham 0, Chelsea 1. In my opinion, arguably our biggest win of the season so far. I'm still absolutely hyped. You know, it's nearly 24 hours past, you could say, and I'm still absolutely hyped. And I'm even more hyped because I'm joined by the man himself. This has been a long time coming, but we kind of struggled to make things work. But hey, here we are. I won't let you down. Alex won't let you down. I'm joined by the man himself, by Mr. Podcast himself, Mr. Alex Goldberg. Alex, how are you?
Mr. Podcast. Never been called that before. I like it. I'm doing great, my man. How are you doing?
I'm very good, you know.
Yeah,
exactly.
I can tell.
Yeah, after last night, how the hell could we not, in my opinion? Obviously, I'm pretty sure the same goes for pretty much every Chelsea fan, and I'm pretty sure the same goes for you. But what did you make of yesterday's game? Just in like a one or two sentence before we, dissect it more and more deeply.
Sure, yeah. Fantastic performance from Chelsea. And if you were to take away literally the final sequence, whether it was the final decisive pass and really more so the final shot, you just take that away, perfection. Really, really good. Chelsea looked like a team that had been together for years, and Spurs looked like the team that had not been together for very long at all.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. It was literally brilliant from bottom to just about top, because we easily could have scored a lot more goals if just as Thomas Tuchel likes to call it, the precision was there. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this right now, of course, don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, check out Alex. I mean, I would kind of be surprised if you don't follow Alex on Twitter already, but if by any chance you don't, go down into the description, follow him on Twitter, check out his podcast, of course, the Byline podcast. Some incredible guests on there. Still, every time you tweet or I see, obviously, the podcast, come out, I'm like, fair play. Absolutely fair play. So, check him out, subscribe, like I said already, and let's talk about this game. And I guess the first thing we need to talk about when we talk about the game is the lineup. And Thomas Tuchel just keeps surprising us. Yes, he's stuck with the same rough formation, but a little surprise was in there again. Out of nowhere, Reece James comes into the side, but that didn't mean Callum Hudson-Odoi didn't start, even though he started the last two games at right wing back. No, he just started as a right forward, or part of a front two rather, because in my books, at least, it was more of a 3-4-1-2 than a 2-1, if that makes sense. So first of all, what did you make of the formation? Maybe you had a bit of an inkling before the game already, but what did you make of the formation just as that, I guess?
Actually, I would say that yesterday, Chelsea kept their team news really tight to the vest. Normally, it's pretty easy for me, even the night before, to at least know a few players that are going to be starting. And very interestingly enough, Thomas Tuchel kept that one really in-house, so fair play to him. So, yeah, it was, I guess, a similar formation, but you're right, probably more of a 3-4-1-2 rather than a 3-4-2-1. But I was gassed, obviously, to see Reece James in there with Callum Hudson-Odoi and with Mason Mount, my three favorite players, as my dog decides to start chewing a bone. Hey, bad timing, Jocelyn. Really bad timing. Thanks. Anyway, so I knew that Reece James could obviously play the right wing back spot, but it's obviously giving you a different thing than when Callum Hudson-Odoi plays it. Reece is capable of taking on his man, but still just doesn't do it all that often. In fact, I would say the one criticism, maybe two, I see regularly on Reece, but one would be, hey, take on your man a little bit more. I know a lot of people get upset when he just passes it back and doesn't even look towards the forward area, but maybe the other one is, well, sometimes he looks shaky defensively, but I thought in the right wing back role, he was very good defensively last night, and he still had, I think, 3 chances created. So I thought, Jocelyn, seriously, I'm on a stream. Sorry. Anyway, I really thought Reece James did a very good job in that right wing back role. Nothing crazy, but a very good job. And I like that Callum Hudson-Odoi was experimented more for, because what does that show me, Laurenz? I mean, it shows me that Thomas Tuchel really rates Callum Hudson-Odoi, because whether it's 2 starts at right wing back, or it's one, as you said, as a right forward, or maybe kind of a striker in ways, just a forward player really far up front, well, he wants him out there. Like I tweeted, and the nickname bothers a lot of people, and the fact that it bothers people makes me like it even more. But Lil Tucci is 3 for 3 in starting Callum Hudson-Odoi. And God, I love Frank Lampard, but Frank couldn't give him consecutive starts, let alone 3 in a row. So that's just tremendous. That was my big takeaway from the 11 was, okay, wow, he needed to get Reece in there because he wasn't going to sit Reece 3 games in a row. That would be really harsh on a fit Reece James. So in order to get Reece in there, he still kept Callum in there, and he moved Callum more forward. And what's really interesting about that is Pulisic's the guy he had in Dortmund. Pulisic is the guy that everybody probably guessed when Tuchel was appointed. And still, it easily could shake out like this. It's early days, but Pulisic was the guy where many were guessing, oh, well, Tuchel's obviously going to start Pulisic every game. But now he's come right in, and he's shown a lot of faith to Callum Hudson-Odoi. So I love the fact that he figured out a way to have Hudson-Odoi still out there, Reece James get a game, get a start, and have Azpilicueta out there. So a little bit of a tweak of formation, but I just love the personnel that he committed to last night.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't agree more. And it is like that because not just did he start Callum Hudson-Odoi 3 games in a row, it was also 3 Premier League games in a row, including, one of our biggest games every single season, playing against Tottenham. And that's kind of where Callum Hudson-Odoi struggled so much. He played a lot of, Europa League games and Champions League group stage games and obviously cup games and did well in all of those. But the consecutive Premier League games starts, that's what he's lacked. And I think the last time he started 3 in a row was under Maurizio Sarri. I don't think he even ever got that under Frank Lampard. I could be mistaken. I just remember a stat that I read like a week ago. But that is remarkable. And I'm also a fan. Obviously, I know Mason Mount Monday or whatever it's called, Mount Monday, whatever you call it exactly. I was one of these people sat here saying, I think Mason Mount will thrive dramatically under Thomas Tuchel. And I think he will play a lot more than a certain few haters with a few agendas, think, because I just rate Mason Mount extremely highly. And, that's what we're seeing at the moment. Of course, he didn't start against Wolves. Okay. But he came on, was one of our best players even when he came on in that game, was one of our best players against Burnley, and even won man of the match last night against Tottenham. And yes, there are certain few things that he needs to still work on, improve on, especially in the final third. But in my opinion, the people that give him a lot of stick for that need to consider the fact that for nearly, 18 months, okay, a few times as a 10, but definitely never as high up the pitch as he did yesterday. He isn't used to this anymore, and especially the last 3, 4, 5 months, he's always played as an 8 or as a defensive 10. So to be in and around the box so much more will take a little bit of getting used to, and people forget that he's only 22, and how much, especially his turn without touching the ball, is one of the most ridiculous things people will see in the Premier League, in my opinion. It's brilliant. And like you touched on already, Reece James, should probably take people on a few more times because we just know he can. Even if you can't always outskill them, just put the ball there, put your body in between them, and you pass them already with how big he is. So he has certain advantages. And hey, that's kind of the same story for all the youngsters. Yes, they don't do everything perfect yet, but with how good they already are and how young they are, it's mind-boggling, in my opinion. It's quite frankly mind-boggling. And the next thing I want to touch on with you, and what I want to get your thoughts on, is the Mateo Kovacic and Jorginho double pivot, double midfield, which I don't think many Chelsea fans still had that much hope in. Of course, in Frank Lampard's first season in charge in around autumn or fall, as you would call it, time, we had 7 wins on the bounce with them two as a double pivot in a probably more of a 4-2-3-1 at the time. But it just hasn't really worked that well since then, quite frankly. Even when we won 3-0, 4-0, whatever it was, away at Krasnodar, even then, the first half, when those two were on the pitch, even then we struggled. But now, these last 3 games, especially Burnley and yesterday, both of them have been absolutely brilliant. And I'm sat here thinking, where and why do you even put N'Golo Kante in there other than for rotational purposes? What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It really is, because Jovic definitely look like they're back in form individually and collectively, of course. And that's still where they're the best as a unit together, in my opinion, because they do have really good chemistry together. I love when one of them comes and receives the ball, they usually apply a one-touch pass to the other, and it starts a bit of, not a counter, but it just starts a good build forward. And they definitely have this understanding about where each other are, and that's really nice to see. So individually, I thought they were good because I thought Jorginho impressed me extra last night.
Yeah.
When Spurs in the second half did become a bit more aggressive with pressing high up the pitch, first half, they weren't, obviously. I mean, Mourinho plays negative football these days. They almost have a negative XG, but he had to change something at halftime because Chelsea were dominant. So they were a bit more physical and aggressive with their pressing Spurs, Højbjerg, and those players. They can get after it a bit, and it is a derby. So one could worry, how will Jorginho maybe handle that if they get really up on him? Last night, Jorginho was just tough enough every time he needed to be tough, but he also was kind of elusive at times, receiving the ball and turning, kind of like how you say Mount turns. And obviously he's just tremendous at it, Mason Mount on the half turn. But yeah, I thought Jorginho, even as a singular player, not even just with Kovacic, was really excellent. So fair play to them, because in all 3 games, they've been at least okay, but honestly, probably above average in all 3. I think maybe the worst performance for either 2 of them in the 3 games was Jorginho at Wolves. And it wasn't that bad of a performance at all. He just was okay, a little underwhelming. But yeah, they've been really strong. And when you think about N'Golo Kante, obviously, if we're like playing FIFA and we're looking at FIFA ratings, just any kid who's not paying attention to a formation, they'll be like, what? Kante's not starting? That's ridiculous. But we've just been in this tumultuous thing with Kante for a few seasons now, where when he's playing consistently and on form, we all just go back to saying, oh my God, there's no one in the world like him. He's so special. And all those things are true. However, obviously, whether it's his doing with some injuries, or it's also a manager just not fully knowing where they want to play him full time, it's been really tough to figure out when consistently Kante gets in the side and where he's best. And it's only going to get harder now, Laurenz, because Thomas Tuchel will change formation. So that's where I come to answer this question. So far, Chelsea have played 3 opponents who sit back. So Jovic is perfect for that. So if Chelsea were just to face these style opponents over and over and over, assuming Jovic were fine on fitness and they weren't too tired, right now you would go for them. You would. Even people who aren't big Jorginho and Kovacic fans, how could they watch these performances against these style opponents? And as long as they knew these players were fit, how could they not go with them? I think many people are. But Kante is going to need to play here and there, whether it's to spell those 2 or just to give his added quality. But maybe it does need to be against a different style opponent. I also, though, want to just caution people that even though this is really encouraging, and I'm not taking anything away from Jorginho and Kovacic and Tuchel and everything that's going on, but it's 3 games. We've seen good form for individual players last for 5, 6, 7 games, and then they go right back to playing poorly. And it's also a new manager. Everyone's trying to impress the new manager. So all I'm saying is this isn't a big enough sample size where we can now say, never mind. Kante is just going to need to be a super sub if we face any opponent like this. Let's see how it shakes out. But I would just say you got to play the form card pretty hard right now, especially if you're playing against a team that's going to have a low block and sit back. But Tuchel apparently loves Kante. He keeps speaking so highly of Kante. So I'm actually just kind of excited to see what's his plan for Kante when he starts him and what's the formation going to look like. Because every Tuchelista who has followed Lil Tucci since before Chelsea, they say, if you think he's going to stick in one formation, even against a similar opponent, you're going to be wrong. So I'm kind of in a wait and see approach as well.
For sure. I mean, that is the thing. It has only been 3 games. And even Kante's cameo appearance, even though, in my opinion, it wasn't quite as good as I would have hoped or liked. But you also have to say, he has been out for a little while, coming into a new system. He hasn't actually featured under Thomas Tuchel yet. So, a bit of rust, shaking off, makes total sense. And I agree. Against certain opponents, Jovic isn't the best solution. The only thing I will say to this, though, our average game will be similar to the last 3 because there isn't that many games that will actually be willing and, trying to attack us, to, press us, to try to go toe-to-toe with us, especially if we get better and better and, keep winning under Thomas Tuchel. Less and less teams will do that. And why I'm saying where does Kante come into it is especially Thomas Tuchel's comments on him in, I think, his first press conference, when he said, in his opinion, N'Golo Kante's best position is part of a double 6, not as a lone 6, not as an 8, but as a double 6. And when I'm like, well, our average game, and if we do use a double 6 in that, like I touched on, the average game is the opponent sitting deep, then I'm like, if they're both fit and somewhat in form, I would probably prefer the way Kante and Kovacic and Jorginho kind of express themselves in that role rather than what Kante does. So that's because I obviously, until he said that, I was like, okay, we're probably eventually going to play a midfield three, and then Kante will be one of those three. Just when he said those two things, or when he said that about him being best in the double six, that's how I was like, oh, well, if Jorginho and Kovacic play really well most of the time, then I'm not sure he will pick Kante over them. And I think the fact that they stayed in the team against Tottenham yesterday was a little bit of an indicator towards that. Of course, I'm not sat here saying Kante won't get game time and Kante will be sold. Not at all. You know, Tuchel has clearly confirmed that he likes Kante a lot, but he will be, like you touched on already, extremely interested to see where he goes with him, I guess, because, you know, it's what we're all here for. You know, that's the most exciting part about getting a new manager. You don't really know what you're going to get yet.
Yeah, no, totally. And it'll be interesting to see if Mason Mount figures in as also a midfielder and not just a more forward player, because I think it's really exciting to see Mount a bit more forward, because I would say maybe Mount's biggest strength right now, and he has a lot of strengths right now. He's pretty much doing everything but the very last thing of a goal or an assist, even though he's getting robbed on some assists. He's pretty much doing all the other departments really well, but maybe his biggest strength is receiving the ball in space, finding pockets. Him on the half turn is ridiculous, like we've said. Yeah. So being more forward is allowing him to really be creative. I mean, let's be real creative. Everybody who said Mount wasn't creative, well, they had never watched him. But anyway, so it's going to be interesting to see, though, if Tuchel, who obviously has knowledge that before he got there, Mount was playing as an 8 and even sometimes a 6, will he try Mount maybe with Conte at times in a certain game, maybe against a weaker opponent? I'm not sure. I mean, maybe we even see Jovic just be a package deal. We could see something like that, where if Jorginho's not playing, also Kovacic isn't playing. I'm not demeaning those guys to say they can't be good with someone else. I would also say specifically Kovacic, if used properly, can still be quality away from Jorginho. Jorginho's always the player where I think he's really dependent on having things just perfectly set up for him. And if they are, great, he's really good. But maybe Kovacic will be a little bit more versatile in what he can fit into. But who knows? Maybe because there is N'Golo Kante and there is Mason Mount also being able to play in the midfield and quite well, and obviously being just as good defensively as Jovic. So maybe, I don't know, Kante could pair neither of Kovacic and Jorginho, and it could be Mount, and who knows, Billy Gilmore. I don't know at this point. I'm pretty sure he'll get minutes in the FA Cup, but it does kind of feel like Billy, especially because Jorginho's playing well, is a little bit further down. But yeah, I'm interested to see it, because there's not a lack of quality in terms of what Tuchel can pick from. That's for sure.
No, for sure not. For sure not. And it is crazy to think about Mason Mount having played as a 6, an 8, a 10, as a wide number 10 or
all in the
inside
last
forward.
3 weeks. All in the last 3 weeks, he's played as an 8, a 6, and now a right forward, a false 9, a 10. He's played everywhere. That's just the one thing. I know I'm a big Mason Mount guy, but I think when people debate Mount, if they're maybe not the biggest Mount fan and they want to talk about another player, I almost guarantee you the other player they want to talk about or praise is somebody who's playing a consistent position. Find me another player in our team that in the last 18 months has been moved around even half as much as this guy, and then think about the level he's consistently playing at.
It's honestly crazy. And you touched on Billy Gilmore there for a second. And the one thing I'm interested to see again from Thomas Tuchel is whether he will want to have a Jorginho type player on the pitch more often than not. Because if he does, that puts Billy Gilmore very much so in the fold of getting a good bit of game time, because Jorginho won't be able to play every game. And the fact that Thomas Tuchel decided to not loan out Billy Gilmore, if he was fine having a Mount Kante or a Kante Kovacic as a pivot or whatever, or sometimes even going to a 3 and only needing one of them to sit, then I think he probably would have been very happy loaning Billy Gilmore out. But the fact that he decided not to, and it seems like that was partly at least his decision as well, does make me think he will like to have a Jorginho-type player on the pitch regularly. Maybe not in every game, not every minute of every game, but regularly at least. And that should lead into Billy Gilmore getting a lot of game time as well. And, you know, I think we would all be pleased about that, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, if you have a 5 in the midfield of Jorginho, Kovacic, Mount, Kante, and Gilmore, that's really fantastic, especially with a manager like Tuchel. And I'm not at all slating Frank, but it just seems like Tuchel is just so much more advanced and experienced in how he views players and how he can then use them. So I think Frank could eventually get there, but he's just so early days. And Tuchel, it just seems like he already has multiple scenarios of where players would be good in. The only thing you're missing from that midfield five is just a fact of someone being really big, right? You are missing factually a big player in the midfield, which is still a reason why Chelsea should overall be looking for a DM. But in the short term, you have everything else between those five. You really do. So I agree. Yeah, if he wants to always kind of have someone like Jorginho in his midfield, little Tucci I speak of, then that does help out Gilmore for sure.
Definitely. And before getting into our, let's say, final third struggles, and maybe someone like Hakim Ziyech, who's kind of so far at least looked like the biggest loser under Thomas Tuchel. Of course, this could all change. We're only talking about this after 3 games. But I guess the biggest negative of last night, besides obviously the certain front three or final third struggles, was without doubt Thiago Silva picking up that thigh injury, which didn't look that good in my opinion. The fact that he didn't even like sit up or nothing and just stayed there, even though obviously people used it as a joke, Spurs sitting so deep, Thiago Silva took a nap, which was funny, but it would have been even more funny if he didn't actually have to come off, especially ahead of such a crucial period with such a tough run of fixtures. Of course, the next couple of weeks are quite favourable. Sheffield United, Barnsley, Newcastle. But after that, it starts to get really, really tough. And I somewhat worried, no matter what system we play, just the other defenders, bar him, the way we know them, the way that their biggest issue is always inconsistency. We've had Andreas Christensen have brilliant performances, like he did last night when he came on. We've had Antonio Rudiger have brilliant performances. Kurt Zouma have brilliant performances, although we don't know how much longer he'll be out for either. That's where we'll be worried a little bit. Against an Atletico Madrid, Luis Suarez, João Felix, but also against, obviously, Manchester United and Liverpool. So I do hope he will be back soon. I don't know if you've heard anything more than maybe the general public have that you're happy to share or whatever, but that didn't look good, did it?
No, it never looks good when a player just goes down on his own. That's the whole thing. Like, contact injuries are usually something where you should be more glass half full, because it's like, it probably just hurt whatever contact happened, and it'll just take a few minutes or maybe a nights of sleep. But now, Thiago Silva did worry me there for sure. I kind of just thought he was eventually going to get up, though, because it wasn't like he was writhing in pain. But then again, that also just means he knows something happened to his leg, and he's just like, what's done is done. I need to come out of the game. I guess I'm more encouraged that it's not a hamstring and it's more the thigh. But no, I have no added info on Thiago Silva. I'm sure right now still trying to figure out just how serious it is. But if we look at the positives, I mean, he walked off on his own, and like you said, the next few games are a bit more favorable for Chelsea. So it is kind of Atletico Madrid where I'm just praying. I'm praying he's fit for that, because I would say Thiago Silva this season, I would love for him to be able to play every game, obviously. However, especially under Thomas Tuchel, where I think this team is going to be moving fluidly together and looking like a team no matter who's out there, I think Thiago Silva needs to be most used as a weapon, meaning when we truly need his presence above all, and when we're truly facing a scary attack, that's when we absolutely need to prioritize Thiago Silva being out there, because hopefully against the Sheffield United, if we were to go with the same system, so to speak, and we had a back three, hopefully a Rudiger, Christensen, Aspi back three can get by against the Sheffield United and a Newcastle. But it's definitely, like you said, against a Luis Suarez and an Atletico Madrid, where Thiago Silva is so important. Tuchel can be as good as we might think he is going to be with this team. And it does feel like he's giving this team extra confidence, and he's almost adding some leadership just by being there. But he can't even make up what Thiago Silva brings out on that pitch. I mean, he was tremendous in the Spurs game before he got injured. And most importantly, he just brings that calming presence. So it's nothing against Andreas Christensen, who actually I thought did quite well. I mean, he did as good as we could have asked from Christensen, coming in a London derby in the middle of the first half. It's not like he got halftime to kind of get eased in. Nope. In the middle of the first half, it's raining. It's a really tense game. He hasn't really played many games, especially like this season. And he was totally fine in keeping the clean sheet. I would say the one department, it's kind of an intricate department where I think we should focus on it more. And it's not against Christensen. He's a good passer of the ball for a center back, always has been. He's had it in his locker. But something Silva, once again, does that just really our other center backs don't is the passes that Silva makes, they might look just like anyone else's, but he hits them so crisp, so low and hard. And it's so important actually for the attack. So I said this on my podcast, but which hasn't even been released yet. So you're getting it first. But I said that in the first 20, 25 minutes, it was really apparent that Hudson-Odoi, Reece James, and Mount had some really good chemistry over on the right. They were getting into a lot of good spaces. And that was usually being started by Thiago Silva, who's the middle center back, passing it low and hard to usually Azpilicueta, who actually gets in more of a right back position when we're in possession playing that system, or Reece James, though. It didn't matter, one or the other. Silva curls it, hits it low and hard, and it gets to the player quickly. And now all of a sudden, someone like Mason Mount, he's ready. He's found the space. He knows that the opponent doesn't really know where he is for that second, 2 seconds. And this game, and really all sports, it's a matter of seconds. It absolutely is. I know Tuchel, he'll talk about precision, like you said, in the final third, but precision's everywhere. It's all about timing. And Thiago Silva is so good at getting the ball to players when it should be there. Nothing against Christensen, but you know Christensen, probably a little unsure of himself these days. So once he places the pass, it's not bad and it looks fairly coordinated. But Silva just knows he has to hit it low and hard. Christensen and the other defenders, not even just Christensen, they kind of have to think about it for a second. Like, is that the right pass? Yeah, that's the right pass. So it's just always a second later than Thiago Silva. So that's also where I'll miss Silva. So yeah, I mean, I will offer up my thigh, both of my thighs for Silva. Maybe my wife will have an issue with that since I have to run around after our little son. But still, Thiago Silva is so, so important.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And it will be extremely interesting against Sheffield United. The fact that, again, I don't know if Kurt Zuma will be fit by then, but if he isn't, we only have actually 2 proper centre-backs fit plus Aspie. So will he even go for 3 at the back? And then it comes back, should we have loaned out Tomori if we were even ever considering playing a back 3? It's a difficult one. I guess Tomori was loaned out before Tuchel came in, although it certainly didn't seem like the board had no inkling to the fact that Frank Lampard might be sacked soon. So maybe we should wait with any loans until another manager agrees or sees off that decision or not. Maybe not, seemingly not. But it will be interesting. It will be tough, with currently only 3 fit centre-backs, I guess. But yeah, Thiago Silva and, without comparing them defensively in the slightest, that's also the positives that David Luiz has, as much as he has and had those, defensive frailties, just error prowess or whatever. That passing, he is the guy that had it a little bit like Thiago Silva does. And, that's what we were missing without him. And that's what we got back with Thiago Silva. And it's brilliant to see, like you touched on. It's absolutely brilliant to see. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we have nearly 200 people watching, but we haven't even hit 100 likes yet. So go down below, smash that like button if you haven't already. And if you don't have a Google account, it's no excuse. Just go make a Google account. It's 2021. Everyone has to have a Google account. What are you doing? And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Check out Alex as well. And if you have anything to add, of course, we're in this discussion here, so I can't exactly see every chat message. So if you want to make sure that I see your message, don't hesitate to use the super chat function. But of course, you don't have to. But of course, let's just say we've talked enough about the defense. Let's get into our final third issues. Of course, we touched on the lineup already. It was Mason Mount, Callum Hudson-Odoi, and Timo Werner. Timo Werner, albeit looking a bit better yesterday in terms of especially his work rate, his pressing, looking a bit more focused or whatever. When it came to those moments where it was like, you should probably score now, or should probably help your teammates score now, he kind of dropped the ball again, in my opinion. I know I was very harsh on him yesterday, whether it was in my watch-along and my reviews. I was a bit harsh. I am generally a bit harsh to Timo Werner. I've explained this before. When I'm harsh on a player, that means I expect a lot from him because I think of them very highly. When I'm not harsh on someone, even though they make similar mistakes, that usually means I don't expect much more from them. So that's part of the reason with Timo Werner. In situations like where Serge Aurier managed to get that late block in, and I'm like, why are you controlling that with your right foot? Which means you have to take an extra step with your left to then shoot with your right, rather than controlling it with your left and shooting straight away, which basically means it's a guaranteed goal as long as you get it on target. And those are frustrating things, but also the final pass, whether it was Callum, whether it was Mason, it wasn't always quite there. And it has been an issue People say it's an issue for the last 3 games. No, it's not even just been an issue this season. It's not even just been an issue the last 2 seasons. That's kind of been an issue since Antonio Conte's second season. Ever since then, we've said, oh, we had chances, didn't take them. Oh, we've had chances, didn't take them. It is a weird thing because the front line has changed completely. I don't think a single player is left from that Antonio Conte period to still be there right now. I guess Olivier Giroud was there in the last season, but other than that, none of them are left, but it's still the same issues, which is a bit weird and a bit worrying and a bit like what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm sure we will work on it under Thomas Tuchel, but that's why I'm not 100% sure we will fix it as much as we would like. How do you see that?
Yeah, I agree that this has been, whether you want to call it a problem or just a fact, it's been that for a little while. I mean, think about it. Even when Willian and Pedro were here, those were not players who historically got double-digit goals. I mean, they just didn't. They didn't. So that always was frustrating, especially because Eden Hazard, I mean, he did more often than not get double-digit goals. I know he wasn't a 20-plus goal scorer, but he usually was good to get at least 10 or more in league. But we would always say, but he's doing so much else, so you got to just surround him with some more goal scorers. And the striker situation has been so inconsistent. There obviously has not been a consistent striker like other teams have with Harry Kane, and I know not Aguero this season, but Aguero and Aubameyang and all those players, Jamie Vardy for Leicester City. We haven't had that rock to score goals for us. And Giroud is what he is. I mean, I think this season's probably been a good example of what Giroud is. He can come in, he can score for himself for sure. And there is a time and a place for Giroud, but at this point, he can't be your leading man. He just can't be consistently. And Werner, he's his own case. I mean, obviously a lot of goals in Germany, but he's having trouble acclimating. He's obviously in a rut. And you can't look at Kai Havertz and expect goals now. I think overall, you're going to expect goals from Kai Havertz, but he's kind of on his own path, his own story right now, getting back up to speed. And I know he has a small injury. And Ziyech is somebody who in Holland would score and assist, but once again, first season in a new league, and he's had some injuries, so there's not much dependency there that you can have yet. And Pulisic has never had a history of cracking double-digit goals in his very young career, let's be real. He did start to really show that eye for goal in the restart, but this season, 1 goal. And Callum, obviously, it's early days. He doesn't have a lot of goals to his name. Mason Mount scored 7 last season, and honestly, probably should have scored more. And I think he'd be the first to admit that. And maybe he's actually one of the more natural guys in terms of being able to score them. But I think last night was a perfect example of Mount has the quality, but I think he wants to, and I'm stealing this from Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, I think he wants to score so badly, and he wants to complete really his game right now that it's really just affecting him, which is not at all a hit at his mentality. Obviously, his mentality is top. But when you're doing so many different things, you can get remember I just said in my previous answer, it's all about precision. Just the smallest second makes a difference. I think that is just going awry for him at the end. What's funny is he was starting to find the back of the net a little bit at the end of Frank's reign. He had 2 goals in 1 week, and then little Tucci comes in, and I think he's probably trying to overdo it for little Tucci and just score those goals. So I went through all these players because I was just trying to outline that, especially if you take Werner, Havertz, and Ziyech out of it, who are all new to the league and kind of on their own story, there's literally no one in this side who has a history either at Chelsea, the Premier League, or just in their career in and of itself, who has scored for a regular occasion. And then compare that to all the other teams that Chelsea are fighting with, especially the top big teams. They all have players that are used to being, at least a couple, that are used to being goal scorers for their team. So it's something for the short term where you just kind of hope one person's momentum spills over onto a lot, because the potential is there for literally on Sunday for us to score 4, 5, 6 goals. And then maybe it catapults a bunch of players. But factually, we are behind. And I think the best way I could say it is experienced goal scoring. We are behind in experienced goal scoring. And the play, last thing I got to say, the play that you mentioned where Serge Aurier made a good intervention, I'll give him credit for sure, but where Timo missed the shot and went out for a corner, I thought that was going to catapult Mount and Werner. Because for Mount, it would have been a live play assist where he carried the ball. I think it went down as a big chance created. And Timo got it. And if Timo scored, it could have catapulted Timo. It would end his goal drought against Spurs. Mount would have got the deserved assist. And I think it also would have broke the game open, obviously 2-0. And maybe we would have ended the game 3-4-0 at that point as well, because we had the quality out there. So maybe all it'll take is just one random goal. I think Tuchel said this earlier in the week, one crappy goal for someone like Timo Werner, because the quality is there. Long-term, Laurenz, I'm not worried at all, because I think there are a lot of guys in the side who should actually be getting double-digit goals this season. It's just not factually there yet in terms of their experience in doing so.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's kind of where a little bit of the issue comes from. The fact that our team, especially in the front line, is so young and so inexperienced. Obviously, Timo Werner, you could say he's probably not, we probably shouldn't be calling him inexperienced while he's young. You know, he's played at the very highest level in the Bundesliga. Not properly was in a title fight, because Bayern Munich were obviously always a good step ahead. But, you know, he's played in Champions League knockout stages. He's scored in Champions League knockout stages. So, you know, he's not totally inexperienced, but for the rest of them, that certainly does go. Or obviously the combination of just young age. My only slight worry is, will we give them the chance? Or will we just say, you know, in the summer, let's sign Erling Haaland, who's also 20, and then we'll have similar issues. Yeah, he's done it in the Bundesliga, but then he struggles a little bit in the Premier League. Will we have similar issues? Let's just keep going, because it's kind of been the issue since Morata. I mean, we didn't give Morata time to let's see whether he figures it out. Obviously, I don't think he would have done, but we didn't give him the time to even really find out. So I'm hoping we do that differently this time. And the only slight worry I have with Timo is he did have that goal against Morecambe, and it wasn't enough against Morecambe. He didn't even celebrate it. He was like, okay, fair. And since then, it hasn't worked either. So that's why I'm like, hopefully that one kind of lucky goal, if he gets it, does it. But I'm not 100% sure. And that doesn't mean I don't believe in Timo Werner long term, but as in, I'm not sure whether one goal will make such a huge difference in the right now term. And by the way, in the chat, 2 people have joined the channel as members, which is massively appreciated. There is a join button beneath the video if you want to become a member. Certain perks to it, joining me on the stream and whatever else, or just be getting like a little badge next to your name, so you definitely get all of your messages highlighted. And by the way, if you have any questions that you want me to pose to Alex, do you use the super chat function to get that in? Because otherwise I have no idea what to pick. And what I need to touch on, I guess, and you know, Ovo has kind of put it in the chat here. What about Hakim Ziyech? Of course, he's had a few injuries, and Thomas Tuchel said something very interesting ahead of the Burnley game, saying he's been overplayed, overworked in the last 5 weeks, and he has a tendency to, you know, kind of pick up injuries when that has been the case. And the slight surprising thing to me was he didn't even play that much in those previous 5 weeks, which tells me, so he didn't play that much, but he was overworked. How does that even happen if he doesn't play that much? And also the fact that he didn't come on yesterday either makes me wonder how will, in the long term, Thomas Tuchel use Hakim Ziyech? Because I said when he came in, I see 2 possibilities where Ziyech can really feature. That is in a 4-2-2-2 as a right-sided number 10, right-sided player behind the 2 strikers, because then he can drift inside, because one of the strikers can drift outside to cover that. Plus, having Reece James behind you, of course, provides the width in itself. Or actually in a formation like that as kind of a right-sided forward that can drop in as a 10. Because I never thought, and obviously we haven't seen it yet on the Tuchel, but if he does ever go for a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 with proper 2 wingers, I don't think he will ever use Ziyech in that role. Because when he does use proper wingers like that, he wants them to be pacey. At least from what we know about him from his Dortmund and PSG days, that is what he likes to do and what he likes to go with. So Ziyech is an interesting one. Of course, he signed him as a 26-year-old, as a player that hasn't played in a big league before, but has looked absolutely brilliant in that league and looked absolutely amazing in the Champions League in that incredible Ajax run, of course, when they ridiculously didn't somehow make it to the Champions League. Honestly, when I watched a Champions League final, when I watched that game, I just got up and left, because the fact that Tottenham turned it around just like pissed me off too much. But the Ziyech one is an interesting one, because you and I agree Pulisic will get his game time. Pulisic will shine under Thomas Tuchel long term. The same will go for Kai Havertz. These 2 are just too good not to, and they're too young not to. But Hakim Ziyech is a different one. He doesn't have the age excuse. He has the league excuse, the experience in the league excuse, but not the age excuse. And I'm not even saying Ziyech has been bad by any means, not at all. I'm just saying, will someone like Thomas Tuchel prioritize, especially now that also Callum Hudson-Odoi has seemingly jumped ahead of him in the pecking order? How do you think that whole rest of the season, shall we say, going for Hakim Ziyech?
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting conversation. And at this point, since we're only 3 games in, you don't want to say too much, but you also don't want to say too little because he's an interesting player to debate, and especially contrast to how Frank used him. So, kind of what you were saying, I agree that whether we see a 4-3-3 or not again, I don't think we're going to see Ziyech as an out and out right winger like we saw him under Frank. Even though obviously once the game starts, he finds the ball anyway. It's kind of magnetic to him. I don't think we'll ever see him line up as a just truly wide player who's supposed to keep the width like we see Callum. Totally agree there. So, yeah, totally can see him as a right forward, which I'm pretty sure he was against Wolves. Kai Havertz was the left forward, which is really interesting because Kai Havertz is left-footed. So we had 2 left-footed players out there, and him and Ziyech. And, yeah, it was the first game under Tuchel, and it still wasn't all that bad. So certainly I can see Ziyech in that role because obviously then he's even closer to the center and he can find the ball, and he could definitely be in areas where he could shoot from deep or pass. So he always has that threat. I think that's really what's nice about Ziyech because he is the older acquisition compared to a Werner and a Kai Havertz and a Pulisic, who obviously was acquired a little while ago. Because he is the older one, and you do expect him to not be given such a easing in period as the others. The thing is he's still factually, when he has the ball, is somebody who could shoot and score from distance and also could pass and assist from distance. So the book is out there on him. Like, teams know, they've seen him in the Champions League, they've seen him at Ajax. When he has the ball, we have to be a bit more mindful about who's making a run and also about blocking his shot, or at least making it harder. So he's always going to have that. The minute he enters a game, if he hasn't played in 7 weeks, he has that, which is nice. So if Tuchel chooses to put him out there, obviously Tuchel is probably going to want that threat, at least that decoy of having Ziyech beyond the ball and opening space for others. So I agree. Probably the spot I would pencil him in most logically right now would be that right forward position. And I'm also kind of thinking, especially if the formation were to change, but I'm also kind of thinking that when we don't see the Jovicic partnership, we could see Ziyech out there, not in a Jovicic role, but we could just see Ziyech out there somewhere else, or maybe as a number 10 or something like that. Because, say, Conte was one of the players coming in for one of the Jovicic members, then we know Conte is not as good at holding on to the ball, and obviously the little build-up that Jovicic has had lately of just knowing where each other are, we know that is where Conte is limited. So I wonder if Ziyech would then be used to kind of combat that and really take the reins and do a lot of the creating from the middle of the pitch. And maybe you'd have someone like Mount out there as well, where Mount and Ziyech could be doing a lot of what Jovicic has been doing, but just a little bit more forward, obviously. And then Conte would just be able to really be N'Golo Conte. Yeah, he might be parallel to maybe a Mount, so Tuchel wouldn't be lying about saying, yes, Conte's best as a double 6 or something like that. But I'm just kind of theorizing that maybe Ziyech will help contrast Conte. So who knows? Let's see. Maybe both of them start versus Sheffield United, and Alex Goldberg looks really good in that prediction, at least one game in, where maybe when Conte starts, almost indirectly, Ziyech starts, if you know what I mean, where just a little extra ball control is added to the team that you might lose when Jovicic exits.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see where you're coming from. It just will be interesting because obviously in the number 10, you do also have Kai Havertz once he is fit.
Sure.
That's kind of Ziyech's small issue. And that's what kind of I thought was the small issue the second we signed Kai Havertz, assuming and hoping that Mason Mount would keep developing. Obviously depending on which position he will play, but there was always talk about Ziyech. Yeah, he can be a right winger, he can be a 10, he can be an 8, an attacking 8. That was kind of the 3 real positions that we had for Hakim Ziyech. And now it will be very interesting to see how he uses it. And yeah, hopefully he does get game time, and whenever he does play, I hope he performs well. And at the end of the day, that's the same for every Chelsea player. As much as I'm not a fan of Marcos Alonso, he started against Burnley, scored against Burnley, secured us the 3 points. So I was happy. At the end of the day, that does matter. And I've said this before, by the way. I have to give a little bit of credit to Marcos Alonso to not play for 4 months at all, and then to come back in and play back-to-back Premier League games in the space of 3 days and not look like absolutely dead tired by the end. he must have done a good job of keeping himself fit, because people always talk about match fitness, match sharpness. Seemingly, if you look after yourself well enough, that only applies after injury, because, hey, Marcos Alonso has done incredibly well at it. And I do know that you need to head off very, very soon, Alex. So I will just get a couple of kind of last minute or last roundup thoughts ahead of the next few games. Who do you expect to play in certain positions? What kind of results are you expecting? Because an interesting one is the fact that we play Timo Werner as kind of not a lone striker, because Callum was kind of next to him, but no Tammy, no Giroud. Neither of them came on, although I do think one of them would have done had we not had the Thiago Silva injury substitution in the first half. It will be interesting to see what happens in that front line there. And guys, again, we have over 300 people watching. Massively appreciate that, but still haven't hit 100 likes. So go and smash that like button. Let's hit 150 likes right now. And Alex, just give me your thoughts for the next couple of games. Who do you think will shine? Who do you think will stand out in specific?
Yeah, I got to think we're going to see a Pulisic start, right? We still haven't seen one under Tuchel, and he definitely has looked good coming off the bench. I'm correct in saying you haven't seen a Pulisic start under Tuchel, right? Yeah, I am correct in saying. Yeah. So he has looked good coming off the bench. It's not like he's been bad, but at the same time, the performances from the starters have not made us think that he should have started those games. But I definitely think we will see him start. Surely. And yeah, I mean, I think we'll figure out a little bit more on Conte in the upcoming game, or at least upcoming games, because Pulisic, Conte, those are players. And I'm not saying politics are playing a huge role at Chelsea at the current moment. They always do to a certain extent, and maybe have this season. But those are players where Chelsea would ideally like them playing a bit more. But obviously, 3 games in for Tuchel, no one's blaming him yet. So, yeah, I got to think Pulisic plays a decent role on Sunday for sure. Who knows? Maybe he's the next one to score a goal out of the attack. Kai, it's too tough to say because of the small injury. And just with Kai, I'm really afraid to make predictions about him this season. Overall, my God, I have absolutely no regret about pretty much twerking for him all summer. I'm so happy he's a Chelsea player. I think he's going to be an absolutely phenomenal player for Chelsea. One of the best in the league for a long, long time. But I'm treating him this season differently than maybe I would treat others. Maybe Tammy gets back in the fold. Maybe Giroud gets back in the fold. It's interesting. Tammy's the one guy I didn't mention when I went on that goal spiel of experience. And actually, that's always the one thing Tammy has in his corner, is he was our leading goal scorer last season with no pens. And I think is still our leading goal scorer this season. I think.
Yeah,
so,
he is. Yeah, in all competitions.
So, I mean, maybe he gets back in there. I mean, Sheffield United, he could get a goal. He could get even turning more with some momentum. So, yeah, I mean, if I were to give you one answer, because Kai and Ziyech, especially Kai, have a little bit of an injury tag attached to them. I know Ziyech was fit and everything. He just was unused against Spurs. But because those guys are just a bit more unclear about how fit they truly are, I got to go with Pulisic. I got to feel, out of all the players we really haven't seen under Tuchel so far, who's going to, in the next few games, really get much more into the mix and maybe be fantastic, I would go with Pulisic. And then kind of not in the attack, I would say Conte certainly is going to, assuming he's fit, of course, assuming nothing happened from last night's appearance to Sunday's game, I got to think at least one of Jovic is going to take a seat, because they've just started all 3. I think Tuchel's smart, where he works players really hard, but also if he rotates a lot, just historically, that shows he is not going to run players into the ground. So certainly he's going to rest at least one of those guys. So I think Conte will come in, hopefully play really well, and Pulisic the same. So those are kind of my 2 to kind of keep an eye out for in terms of their performance and maybe specifically where they're used. Because actually on Pulisic, someone brought up on Twitter that Tuchel early days is almost preferred him more on the right side. I know it's really a small sample size because he's not starting these games, but that's interesting. So yeah, 2 players I think will do well, but I'm also interested to see where they play, Pulisic, Conte. Yeah,
no, that is true. Is the one exception from that, I guess. Well, I say the one exception. His first kind of real appearance was in the second half against Burnley, when, of course, he came on at halftime and replaced Tammy Abraham, forming, and again, like we saw against Spurs, kind of a front 2 with Werner. I guess they interchanged a little bit, but he was more towards the right. Although if it's as a right-sided striker, I don't think whether you're right or left-sided makes as much of a difference as in terms of the winger. But that is interesting. The fact that has, so far counted for both Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi. They just used both of them more on the right while using Kai Havertz on the left, who was about the last player I would personally have probably used on the left in that specific game anyway. But yeah, no, I agree. Tammy Abraham is a tough one because Tammy can be extremely frustrating, but the one thing we can't say about Tammy Abraham does not miss chances. Like sometimes he may not get as many as Timo Werner does. That's factually, true. Timo Werner manages to find himself getting a lot more chances than any of our other forwards. He just doesn't take them. But when Tammy does, 9 times out of 10, he will score. I don't remember him having a single drastic miss this season. I know people were going, were on his back after the Spurs game at Stamford Bridge, of course, saying he should have done better here and should have done better there. I thought that was extremely harsh. They were all very difficult headers that I wouldn't expect Giroud to score either. He might have done, but there weren't any he has to score that headers, in my opinion. So Tammy has that going for him. And Alex, I know you need to head off, and I don't want to kind of waste your time with an outro. So if you need to head off, just say you need to head off, and I will just round this out by myself. Don't want to keep you for longer than you have time for. I really struggle with your name. Yesta's Vengeance has said Tuchel hasn't started Christian Pulisic because he knows where to play him and what he gives on the pitch. He is still learning about the squad and where to play the rest of the players. And that certainly is true. I'm not sure whether it's 100% applied to the Tottenham game, because that was a big game and not really a tester game, I don't think, neither for Tuchel nor anybody else. But certainly against Burnley and against Wolves, that did apply to some extent. Don't you agree?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point, I think, by your viewer, where maybe I'm sure there's tactical reasons also why he hasn't started yet. Nothing too demeaning or bad on him, discouraging, I could say. Nothing like that. But maybe also it's because they have a relationship. So Tuchel knows if he just communicates to Pulisic a little bit and tells him honestly what he's trying to do each game, and overall that maybe he's trying to see what players are good where. Maybe he knows Pulisic can not take it as hard as others that he doesn't know. So that's a fair point. And also he clearly knows Pulisic a bit deeper than he knows some of the other Chelsea players. So maybe he's just not at all confused about where Pulisic will be best, but he would like to figure out where maybe some other players would be best. I think it's a little bit of everything. I don't think that's the main reason, or at least sole reason, but I do think that is playing a part to some degree, because if he didn't know Pulisic at all, I feel like he probably would have started Pulisic at least once by now, just not to make the player totally discouraged and, I don't know, not disinterested, but down in the dumps. So maybe that is part of Tuchel's player management, man management, you could say, knowing he has a relationship there with Pulisic. And once again, he still has used him in all 3 of these games. He just hasn't given him a start. But Laurenz, we could look back in 10 days, 2 weeks, and Pulisic could have started almost all the games between now and then, and we could almost laugh at us talking about Pulisic not starting the first 3, because the further you move on with Tuchel, these first 3 might still look exactly the same as the following games, but very well could look like, oh, that was the first 3 games. That was different. It was positive, but it was different. And now we're here with these players. So that's why it's so interesting to debate what we're seeing so far with Lil Tucci and what he's done and what he could do. But like you said at the beginning of the stream, and I do have to log off in just a second, but I want to give you credit. Like you said, is part of the excitement of all of this is we don't fully know exactly what we're saying. Like, I pride myself when someone invites me onto a stream and being confident in what I'm saying and my opinions and maybe giving good insight as to what could happen. And for the most part, I feel like I'm doing that. But I think for all of us, there's at least some admittance in the back of our head saying, but I don't know, because Tuchel is A, new manager, but B, most importantly, a manager who is famous for switching things up. So that's exciting. And it's also a little confusing, especially when you have this many talented players in the midfield and attack. So, hey, I think every manager would like the chance to coach these players, but let's not say it's easy, because if we're playing FIFA, we don't have to worry about feelings getting hurt or players getting disinterested or distraught. But in real life, you do. So credit to Tuchel, because so far he looks like he's really motivated and excited to have this good problem, this good headache, like Frank Lampard termed it. So, yeah, I do have to log off. You'll quickly see my beautiful couch as I run around to the other side of the phone and press end. But, my man, it was really a lot of fun. Thank you to your viewers for watching, and we'll link up very soon.
For sure. Thank you for coming on, Alex. Like I said to everybody in the chat, check him out if you haven't already. That would be massively appreciated if you could do that. I will just round this out in just a couple of minutes' time. Just have a few more, talking points and thoughts that I have to share. Of course, Alex has to go and record his own podcast, and obviously fair dues to him. Everyone has to do their own thing. I did see a message earlier by Yestas Vengeance. The fact that we're linked with Achraf Hakimi, not a biggest fan of it. He's a right wing back or a right mid. We have seen that Callum Hudson-Odoi is brilliant in that role in the last 2 games, and we have Reece James. I don't need and I don't want Achraf Hakimi. As much as I rate him as a player, I don't need and I don't want him. I'm sorry. Also, he's been on loan at Dortmund. He's now on loan at Inter. And realistically, long term, Real Madrid probably want him as their replacement for Dani Carvajal, who, of course, is not getting younger at all. I don't know how old exactly he is, but he's definitely not getting younger. And hey, I can only echo what Alex said. Who the hell knows what happens in the next 2 games? Who the hell knows? And I just wanted to throw in there, but couldn't quite say it to Alex anymore. Who knows the situation with Christian Pulisic either? Because obviously we did see him touch on Hakim Ziyech, being overworked, overplayed, so he wasn't fit to play more. Who knows? Maybe that is a similar situation with Christian Pulisic. We know that he is injury prone. He's had many muscle injuries in his career, but also his time at Chelsea. And the fact that obviously Christian has played a lot more games than a lot of us probably would have been comfortable with during the Christmas period, during this busy period, that he's played so many games. Maybe that's also part of the reason why he's, not, played and started under Thomas Tuchel so far. Are you 100% sure about that? Are you sure about that, Yestas? I feel like he's on loan there, What streaming website do you use? StreamYard, bro. StreamYard. But ladies and gentlemen, we have still 283 people watching, which is massive. I love that from you. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe. I want to hit 10,000 subscribers as soon as bloody possible. We're at 8,250 or something. So go down below. Please subscribe. If you don't have a Google account, please make a Google account and subscribe. Smash the like button. We haven't hit 150 likes yet, even though we have nearly 300 viewers. So go down below. Smash the like button for me. If you're happy that Chelsea won yesterday, the fact that London is blue, and no matter what any Arsenal fan, no matter what any Tottenham fan, and to be honest at this rate, even any bloody West Ham fan tells you, London is blue and it will never ever go a different color. It's simply facts. The links come from Inter missing the first 11 mil payment. Not 100% sure. Fair enough. It's honestly, and hey, everyone in the chat, I'm not saying like Hakimi is bad. I know he's good, but we just have players in that position already that I want to see thrive and that I want to give more of a chance to see develop before we sign another player in their position. I don't need it. I don't think Achraf Hakimi is a significant upgrade on Hudson-Odoi or Reece James. Neither right now nor in terms of potential. I don't see it like that. Maybe some of you do. I don't. I will just be plain and honest like that. It's quite that simple, honestly. It is quite that simple. But ladies and gentlemen, do you have any more questions? Do you have anything else that you want me to touch on? Of course, like Yestas Vengeance and Stripper, who had to head off, they became members today. Members of this channel. There is different tiers of memberships. The basic membership, which is not a lot of money. It basically just means you support the channel, and I 100% will read out all of your thoughts, all of your questions, and you get this badge added to your name in the chat. So, that is definitely something you'll fancy. But also, the higher tiers allow you to come on my streams, because the situation is simple as that. I have a lot of viewers. I have a lot of followers. And it would just feel unfair. I can't possibly get everyone on that messages me that they want to come on. So if you do fancy it, do become a member, and you will either be coming on for streams for parts of a stream for like a 20 minutes, half an hour period, or even at the highest level for entire streams, every 2 weeks or whatever, however much you fancy, in all honesty. So if you fancy that, go down below, click the join button, subscribe if you haven't already, smash the like button. And I was basically just talking if any of you have a few more questions that you want me to touch on. Obviously, a couple of people have said London is now, for the moment, claret and blue, but Chelsea will win top 4. Will finish top 4. Yeah, I agree with this. I mean, West Ham are ahead of us right now. I can't really say much, can I? That is a fact. But yes, I do firmly believe that Chelsea will finish within the top 4, and that is unbelievably good, I hope, because, hey, there is still a lot of teams behind us that have games in hand, and if all of them would win all of their games in hand, and although I'm not 100% sure if some of these games are against each other, we would actually be 9th. But even at 9th, we would only be 4 points of Liverpool. And as long as we keep winning, we play all of these teams that are ahead of us still, right? Don't forget that. We play all of these teams. So and everyone will drop points. I mean, Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp, the pressure is piling up on that dude. I'm telling you guys, the pressure is piling up on him. Have you seen his comments in a press conference today? He said Manchester City had 2 weeks off for, because certain players tested positive and they couldn't play games. He just said they had a 2-week break. And Pep Guardiola went back at him. He didn't think Klopp was a man like that. It's a bit crazy. And no, I'll tell you, Chilwell is absolutely not done in the slightest because we will 100% play a lot of games with a back four. Maybe for the time being, we will stick to a back three, but eventually we will go back to a back four. And then Ben Chilwell is guaranteed first choice left back. And even in the left wing back role, once he gets a bit more experience there, a bit more training, a bit more games, he will be a very good left wing back as well. He will probably never have the kind of finishing abilities that Marcos Alonso has, but in the build-up, he will be able to use the left side more because even against Tottenham yesterday, as much as we were brilliant, we did everything down the right-hand side. We didn't create any attacks down the left with Alonso because he's just not good at that. He's just absolutely not good at that. Yes, there's with another thought. Does Tuchel's success show more of Frank's weaknesses as a manager? No. Well, yes and no. In terms of the pressing, the fact that Frank Lampard said in January, it takes time to get players used to the pressing when you sign this many new ones. And the fact that Thomas Tuchel took one training session to make our pressing so much better, that part does make Frank look a bit silly, I won't lie. But you also have to consider when we beat Tottenham last year, both performances were arguably better than yesterday's performance. Yesterday was really good, but the end product was better in those 2 games than Frank Lampard last season. This season, in both games against Spurs, no. But last season it was. The game against Burnley, when we won away, yes, they were in worse form than they were when we played them at the Bridge a week ago. But that was a better performance as well. So I'm not even, and this is no discredit of Thomas Tuchel as well, what he's done so far has been absolutely remarkable and nothing short of brilliant. And I love a lot of, what is that question? Bro, for stuff like that, I'm not having it. Sexism, racism, homophobia. If you're about that life, just piss off right now. Honestly, get lost. You must be joking. What did Carlos say? Would you swap James Chilwell for James Justin? What? No, Timothy, I think you misunderstood him. James Justin is the current left back for Leicester City. After we signed Ben Chilwell, it's a difficult one. But hey, he's only had this season. A lot of players have had one good season. Remember bloody Michu? I think he's in the 4th division of Spain these days. So you know what I mean. He's in the 4th division of Spain. James Justin is miles ahead of Chilwell in my opinion. Yeah, this season he might have been. Miles maybe not, but better than James Chilwell. Ben Chilwell. But next season, we'll have to wait and see. I strongly believe in Ben Chilwell. I think he's a very good player that has abilities all over the pitch in all sorts of areas and aspects. So, I wouldn't discredit it by any means at all. King Kong, what did King Kong say? Chilwell and Alonso are not quick enough. You need... No. You guys don't underestimate how fast Ben Chilwell is. Ben Chilwell is quick. Yeah, he's not... Ben Chilwell is quicker than Reece James, by the way. Just understand that factually, So, do that. Did I hear about Onana? Yes, I did. Onana was suspended for 12 months by the UEFA from any sort of football for doping. He apparently claims he accidentally took his wife's medication, which had sort of illegal substances in it. Load of crap, if you ask me. But hey, if James just does it constantly for the next 2, 3, 4 seasons, he will be the best left back in the Prem. Hey, he might be. Great content. Love from India. Love that. Love back to India. Love India. Love Indian food. Although who doesn't, really? Running around and trying is what Mason Mount fanboys call great work rate. No. Mason Mount was literally our best player yesterday. Maybe behind Jorginho. So if you think like that, I don't understand what you do. Do you not see his turns? Do you not see the space he creates? Do you not see the runs deep? Do you not see him dropping back to create and help in the build-up? Yes, some of his final passes and his shots in the last 3 games were poor, those 2 games. But to think Mason Mount does nothing but run around is stupid. Also, someone bloody needs to run around. Remember how many games we've had where we said lack of effort, and none of the team worked hard enough, and that's why we lost the game. Well, at least you won't get that with Mason Mount. So it's that one. Reece James is already clear of that fraud trend. Kind of agree. Reece James is a young Kyle Walker. I mean, Reece James will never, ever have the pace anywhere near of Kyle Walker. But other than that, yes, just much better crossing and attacking play because Kyle Walker is very on and off. Of course, in his Tottenham days and his first few years at City, brilliant. But the more he's forced to work defensively, the more he will struggle in Reece James. I'm confident we'll get better at that. Jesters with another chat. Could you see Chilwell being used as at left centre back play like Aspie? I could, but we definitely won't play Aspie and Chile. So but I definitely could see it. Yeah, Jorginho was man of the match, but Mason was a close second in my opinion. Mason Mount is a special English talent. I love him. I could not agree more, King Kong. Thomas Tuchel has rejuvenated the Chelsea squad. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, I agree with Charles. Here. Mount is quality, but his shooting is poor lately. At least he takes risks. You say that. He scored a lovely goal from distance against Morecambe, which isn't long ago. He scored a lovely volley against Fulham, which is not long ago. Yes, the last 2 games of shooting has been poor, but to say Mason Mount is poor shooting is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to leave it in just a second. Again, if you haven't already, please, I'm honestly nearly begging you, please be sure to subscribe. Like it says in the bottom right-hand corner here, subscribe to my channel to help me reach 10,000 subscribers as soon as bloody possible. Smash the like button. Help me reach 150 likes right now. We're only 13 away, so just 13 more of you need to go down below and smash the like button. I'd massively appreciate it. Become a member of the channel by hitting the join button underneath the video. Everything is explained there. That'd be massively appreciated. Follow me on Twitter, on Instagram. Links down in the description. Check out Alex, of course, the Barline Podcast, and him on Twitter. And at the end of the day, all I can say is thank you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for the support all over the shop over the years, whether it's on Blues Fans TV here or back in the day on 100% Chelsea. And I will see you tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure on the time yet, but I will see you tomorrow for a Sheffield United or Chelsea against Sheffield United preview in the afternoon, probably around 4 p.m. UK time. So be sure to tune in for that. Be sure to subscribe for that so you don't miss it. And what's the situation with Thiago Silva's injury? We don't know at this point. There will be no more additional press conference ahead of the Sheffield United game because obviously we played on Thursday and then we don't have a Friday press conference. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there, but he's definitely not going to play against Sheffield United. That's for sure. What do you think of Rice? Could he play at Chelsea? He could, but now that Frank Lampard's gone, I very much doubt that. I very much doubt that happening. Great streams. Great stream. Love that from you, Timothy. Of course, if anyone still wants to chuck in a super chat, please do that. Just support the channel. And it just makes me happy. I won't lie. Hey, as much as, we don't get rich from this, a little bit of P. No one complains about a little bit of P, but I'm not making any of you pay. I just appreciate everyone that is tuning in, appreciate everyone that is subscribing and smashing that like button. And Jester's Vengeance is the last comment that we're going to leave it on today. We don't need Thiago for at least a week, so rest him. I don't know if rest will be the issue for him. I think he's just going to be injured personally, but hey, we'll have to wait and see. But ladies and gentlemen, the second half was nowhere near 50-50. Tottenham had a good last 10 minutes, and that was it. And that's because we got worse and not because they got so much better. I mean, they did get a bit better, but still. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Up to Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and I'll see you next time. Wait. Well, I will see you next time, but thank you for watching, honestly.